Nelson Mandela will forever be remembered as that one man who went from being a prisoner to becoming the president of his own country. Now these situations are particularly rare but very possible. There have been other African leaders who have been to prison before coming out to be presidents of their nations. Most of them were sent to prison probably because of the ideologies they spread, and people who never wanted them or people who felt threatened by them threw them in prison to silence them and end the movements they started. So which other African leaders do you think have served prison sentences before coming out to be presidents of their countries? In this video, we take a look at 7 African leaders who went from being prisoners to presidents. Number 7. Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe is a famous Zimbabwean leader who ruled the country since it gained its independence in 1980 right up to 2017, when he was forced to resign by the military. Due to his activist movements and opposition to British rule over Zimbabwe by using his position as the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe African National Union. The British saw him as a threat and had to put him away for their benefit. This led to his arrest in December of 1963, which saw him spend over 21 months in prison. This prison where he was held mostly had black prison wardens who supported his movement and sympathized with him as he was in jail. They just had to help. They started smuggling messages in and out of the prison for Mugabe and other members of the ZANU Executive Committee. This gave an edge and advantage to the ZANU members to attack British-owned farms and taking out their inhabitants. From 1975, after Mugabe had left prison, he started waging guerrilla wars against the British rulers. This ultimately led to the UK granting the then Rhodesia full independence on the condition that they conduct a democratic election. Mugabe won the election and became the president of today's Great Zimbabwe. Number 6. Jacob Zuma. He is the 4th president of South Africa. He ruled from 2009 and resigned in 2018. But before becoming president, Zuma had served as deputy president of South Africa from 1995 to 2005 under the leadership of Thabo Mbeki. He was dismissed on allegations of corruption. Zuma had so many legal issues before and even during his time as president. Before even coming into politics, Zuma had served time in prison for his involvement in the fight against apartheid in South Africa and being a member of the African National Congress. Zuma joined the ANC in 1959 and joined its military wing, which was called Umkhonto we Sizwe, which meant Spear of the Nation, in 1962. He was eventually arrested in 1963 and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. This didn't break his spirit, as when he left prison he continued to work for the African National Congress and continued to recruit more members to the military wing of the ANC. He steadily rose to the ranks of the party through his hard work and dedication, and when it was time he became the president of the Great South Africa in 2009. That is how Jacob Zuma went from being a prisoner to the president of South Africa. Number 5. Olusegun Obasanjo. Obasanjo was another leader and human rights activist who also went from being a prisoner to president. He was imprisoned during the military regime of Sani Abacha. How did they cross paths, you may wonder? Well, during Sani Abacha's military dictatorship reign, there were so many inhumane practices and torture, and that didn't sit right with Obasanjo. He then began to speak out against Abacha's government and the human rights abuse he practiced. This led to his being arrested in 1995 and imprisoned for an alleged coup, which failed despite pleading his innocence. As this would go, Obasanjo was released after the death of Abacha in 1998. He went in for the presidency and won and became the president of Nigeria from 1999 to 2007. If you are still watching this video, it means you like it. Why not take out a second and hit that like button? Have you done that? Let's continue. Number 4. Muhammadu Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari, a former major general, has ruled Nigeria twice. First as a military head of state from December 1983 to August 1985, and secondly as a democratically elected president of Nigeria. As of the time of the making of this video, he is still the ruler of Nigeria. After his first tenure as military head of state, which ended in a prison sentence of 3 years, Buhari contested 4 presidential elections, of which he lost 3 until his victory in 2015. On August 1985, Major General Buhari was overthrown in a military coup led by General Ibrahim Babangida and other members of the ruling Supreme Military Council, SMC. He was held prisoner in 1985 in a small, guarded bungalow in Benin for 3 years until 1988. He had access to television that showed 2 channels, and members of his family were allowed to visit him every now and then with the authorization of Babangida. From 2003 to 2011, Buhari contested and lost in 3 different presidential elections. In 2003 and 2007, he contested under the All Nigeria People's Party, (NPP). In 2011, he changed the party to the Congress for Progressive Change, (CPC), where he lost again to PDP and its candidate, Goodluck Jonathan. Buhari eventually succeeded in 2015 when he contested under the All Progressive Congress and defeated the incumbent Goodluck Jonathan of the PDP. President Buhari's win in 2015 was regarded as a landmark victory because it marks the end of PDP's rule since 1999. Number 3. Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta was a Kenyan anti-colonial activist who played a significant role in the transformation of Kenya from a colony of the British Empire to an independent republic. In 1947, he was elected president of the Kenya African Union, which wanted independence from British colonial rule, attracting widespread indigenous support. In 1952, he was among the Kapenguria 6 arrested and charged with masterminding the anti-colonial Mau Mau uprising. He was convicted and remained in prison until 1959, then exiled in 1961. On his release, Kenyatta was appointed president of KNU, Kenya African National Union, and led the party to victory in the 1963 general elections. He became president in 1964 and ruled till 1978 when he died of a stroke. Number 2. Kwame Nkrumah. There isn't any African who doesn't know this name. Nkrumah was the first prime minister and president of the great country of Ghana. He led Ghana to independence from Britain in 1957. In 1949, when the British colonial master selected 6 middle-class Africans to draft a new constitution that will give Ghana more self-government, Nkrumah, who was then leader of the convention's People Party, knew that the recommendations will not give Ghana full independence and demanded that the Constituent Assembly write the constitution. The then British governor, Charles Arden Clarke, refused to commit to this, so Nkrumah called for positive action, with unions beginning a general strike on the 8th of January 1950. The strike became so violent that Nkrumah and other CPP leaders had to be arrested and sentenced to 2 years in prison. As Ghana prepared for elections, Nkrumah's assistant ran the CPP, with Nkrumah influencing events through smuggled notes written on toilet paper. The election finally ended with the CPP winning 34 out of 38 seats, including Nkrumah's Accra constituency. Arden Clarke ordered Nkrumah's release and asked him to form a government. He was prime minister from then until Ghana became fully independent in 1957 and became the president in 1960. And finally on the list, if you have guessed, then you've guessed right. It is no other than the famous story we all know. Number 1. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary political leader and philanthropist who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of state and the first elected in the fully representative democratic election. Mandela was arrested a lot of times, but most notably was his incarceration from 1962 to 1990. He spent a total of 28 years in prison after he was found guilty of sabotage and conspiracy to violently overthrow the government through Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, a militant group he co-founded in 1961. After widespread agitation, global protest, and pressure from the UN, Mandela was finally granted unconditional freedom in February 1990. He led the ANC to the 1994 elections and became the president of South Africa. This brings us to the end of this video. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the content. don't forget to share with friends.